Hello everyone and welcome. It is now 6 p.m. on September the 7th, 2022. The Bel Air Beach City Council meeting will now come to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I ask Patty to call the roll, I'd like to ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence to honor those who lost their lives on September the 11th, 2001, in a coordinated attack on the World Trade Center, U.S. Pentagon, and United Airlines Flight 93. Thank you. To add to that, on September the 11th at 8 a.m., the Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District will host a memorial beach walk to honor the fallen at the Bel Air Beach Community Center. All are welcome to participate, and if you'd like more information about this event, please visit the City of Bel Air Beach website. Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Leslie Otero. Here. Councilmember Roy Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley. Here. Councilmember Mike Zabel.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Dave Gavis.
Here.
Interim City Manager Kyle Riefler.
Here.
And City Attorney Randy Mora.
Present. Thank you, Patty. Before we begin, we're going to need approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? Motion. Motion made by Frank Banker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mike Zabel. Before we take a vote on this, I would like to ask someone to make a motion to move item number 17 to the regular agenda. Only because it's a contract and it's something with a dollar value on it, I think it's appropriate to move it out. Motion to move 17. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jody Shirley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, the motion passes to amend the agenda. So now we need to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as amended. Thank you very much. Item 2, citizen comments. This is where the citizens have the opportunity to speak about any topic that is not already on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. When called on, please approach the podium, give us your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to speak? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Tammy Lavenda, 97 Harbor Drive. I'm actually speaking during citizen comments, but as the Park and Rec Board Chair. And I will be under 3 minutes, but if not, I have Nicole Sussman here, so I can use her 3 minutes. Just a quick reminder to everyone that we have 2 events coming up. One in October, it's the Halloween Pet and Pals Costume Contest. So this year it is on a Sunday, and it's from 4 to 6. So there'll be a costume contest for like the animals, hopefully dogs. Nobody brings their chinchilla. And the kids. We had a great time last year. We had a really good turnout. So hopefully, the weather will be cooperative, as it is our only weather permitting event. If you would, we're not going to do the parade this year, but if you would like to donate a bag of candy for like our version of a trunk or treat, please drop that off at City Hall. That would be appreciated. And if you have any other questions, feel free to call either myself, and there'll be more details on the website. And then in November, for the entire month of November, we're going to do a holiday food drive. So non-perishable items and we'll have something in the lobby of City Hall leading up to our chili cook-off on November 19th. And that is on a Saturday from 12 to 2. We do have information sheets over on the table, so if you want to grab one, it kind of gives you all the information that you would need. And then the second page is an entry form that you can turn into anybody on the Park and Rec board or just drop off with Laura at the front desk. And I believe that's it. We're selling tickets. For one ticket for $10, you get your entry fee to taste all the chilies, and then you get 2 drink tickets. So we are having beer and wine at that event. We have our license and insurance. And you can also get those from any Park and Rec board member, or you can contact the city. Oh, and last but not least, we have our Health and Wellness Fair on January 14th. We're moving right along with the participants, meaning the wellness participants. But I would love to get more people from Bel Air Beach that, like say Dr. Quick or Clean Eats. They own businesses outside of Bel Air Beach but reside in Bel Air Beach. I just don't know how to contact them. I would love to have more people participate in our fair that actually live here. So like just trying to get the word out. We do have, I think, 15 people already signed up, and we have room for like 23 health and wellness care providers. So we're moving along, but we do have some openings and some pending. So if any of the residents would be interested in actually having a table for their business, that would be most welcome. So I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Would any other citizens like to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi folks, Jeff Keith, 109 Harbor Drive. First off, I'd like to thank you guys for doing what you do a great job. You know, I'm here every week, every month watching, and you do great. So I know most of the citizens probably really respect that. And what I wanted to ask tonight is, the last couple of years there's been some talk about the paving of our easement in the back, the walking easement. And I'd like to just go forward with whatever's happening there that the citizens aren't really too aware of, I don't think. And I'd like the council to look into it and maybe see why we'd want to pave that, and then go through the costs of it. And that's all I've got.
Thank you very much. Would any other citizens like to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening, City of Bel Air Beach Council. I'm Victor Burianic, the video guy. I am not a resident of the city yet. I hope to one day be able to afford such a beautiful house in a beautiful community like this. But with inflation, I'll have to work harder. I'm here to talk about the video that you guys are discussing. I would just like to, I listened in on the last work session that you guys had that I was not in attendance to. And I see that there wasn't any direction that the council came up with. So I'd just like to further that discussion and let you guys know what my thoughts are. First off, I'd like to also address that I did approach Mayor Gaddis, and I addressed him and said, hey, going forward for this Zoom-style meeting, what do you guys envision as a budget? Mayor Gaddis in turn replied to me and said, you've always been fair with us, you've been working with us for 7 years, so just present a budget and we'll go from there. So I was a little bit surprised that the budget that I came up with Kyle, we hashed it out, was a little bit high, but I feel like I did give the opportunity to put some discussion there. But furthermore, I'd like to also address a few things. So you guys are a premier city. You guys spend a lot of money on digital signage to look like a great city. And in turn, I think the media should follow. I invite you all to look at other cities such as yourselves on YouTube and see the production. Somehow I feel like the Zoom direction that you guys are going into looks like an office meeting or a school board meeting, and it's a little bit, it's hard to see who's talking, hard to see what's happening. And I don't know if you want to canvass the residents to see what their thoughts are, but I do see views on YouTube. Anybody can see those numbers, and I'm seeing like 5 to 15 people watching the Zoom meeting versus the production of where people are close up and they're actually on video is in the hundreds of views. So, but that's obviously, I'm speaking for myself, so you'd have to ask the citizens what their position is on that. But I do think that the views speak for itself. There was also some discussion on my pricing, and it was compared to council. Like I said, my pricing is not meant to be as expensive as your town attorney. He works a lot more for you guys, and if you look at it on a monthly basis, it's quite different. The hourly rate, again, which is negotiable, is just based off of other productions that happen. I know when I do a wedding, the rates start at about $3,000 and go up to 10. If I do corporate videos, they're much more expensive. So you guys are really getting a bargain. So those are just my quick thoughts. It really helps to have a professional production to, for example, I get often asked why I have 2 cameras. If something happens, I've got redundancy so that if there's a problem, that is taken care of. But anyways, in closing, I'd like to just point out that I've been with you guys, my family, as a GLAD contractor for 7 years. I've never missed a date. I love doing this as a job, and I hope you guys see the value in what I'm doing. I think I was speaking with Kyle, and I saw that I didn't raise my rates at all for the past 7 years. I was actually under the impression when we negotiated I did, but I did not. So that's my 2 cents for you guys. I just wanted to give you some thoughts, but let me know what direction you want to go in, and I understand. Thank you.
Any other citizens? All right, let's move on to number 3, which is a presentation from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, beginning with law enforcement monthly report. Please step up to the podium, give us your name, and let's have it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Sergeant Clint McKnight with Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I'm going to present to you the July 2022 Sheriff's Office report. For the first page, the only information gathered there was 2 assaults for the month for July of 2022. The second page is the arrest report. There were 6 people arrested in July of 2022 for a total of 9 charges. For the third page, there was 948 events that required 1,065 deputies respond to those events. And for the final page, there was 1 traffic crash in the month of July, and there was a total of 222 combination of citations and warnings for the month. Do you have any questions for us?
Sounds like a very slow month. Council? Questions?
Sure, just briefly, so the 2 assaults were directly with a traffic stop?
One was, another one was one of the deputies on the opposite shift as mine found a couple people under the bridge, 2 of which were runaway juveniles. One of the juveniles kicked one of the deputies, so that was the other felony charge.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Nope. Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, Code Enforcement Monthly Report. Deputy Clapper.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, citizens. Steve Clapper for the record. From the August agenda that we've had, we've been fairly busy with several things. Again, going after people with building or doing work without permits and licensing. The other is also had a couple complaints about some docks that we're looking into, and also, again, because of the rainy season, we've gotten a lot of complaints from overgrown grass and weeds. most of those issues have been taken care of.
Excuse
A
me,
lot-
Jackie, is your microphone on?
Hello?
Push that little button for us there.
How's that?
Oh, way better.
All right, you want to start all over?
Sure. go right
Okay.
ahead.
Again, Steve Clappy for the record, had a pretty busy month in August. We've had a lot of incidents again with contractors licensing, not permitting. The other side of that, we've got a couple follow-ups that we're doing with some docks that need to be repaired. I've been in contact with the homeowners to let them know that work needs to be done, again, because of parts and so forth, and getting contractors out here to do the work. The other is because of the rainy season, we've got a lot of complaints about overgrown grass, weeds into empty lots, and we've taken care of most of them. But other than that, it's all I have for you.
Council.
Sure. I want to get into handyman. I mean, we've seen a big push about you're checking people if they're licensed, but with a handyman, or say a minor thing, say if somebody wants to just have them come into the house and do some drywall, we're talking non-structural, they're just cleaning a dent in the wall. Do they really need a license? I mean, that's between the homeowner and their insurance company.
If it's a homeowner doing it, no. If it's somebody on the outside, they have to be licensed.
What type of license?
Well, it's up until July of next year. If they're doing any type of drywall work or painting, they have to have a license. And again, when you're removing drywall or you're doing any type of work, the county considers that demo work, so you may need a permit for it. And again, it depends on the size of the job that they're doing and what they're doing.
Now, what type of license are you talking? I want to be very specific. What type of license are you requesting? Because there's business licenses, there's contracting licenses.
Right. Well, again, it depends on the status of the work. I mean, I've had people just replace 300 feet of drywall, and by the county code, you have to have.
I'm talking really undercut. I'm not talking major projects. I'm talking about somebody's got a 1x1 sheet of, they banged it in with their door.
And is the homeowner doing it?
No, we're having some, a lot of people here can, I can do it, no problem.
Well,
A lot of people
unfortunately,
can't.
with the county ordinances, they have to be licensed and they have to be insured.
Just to do a patch job. And again, that license, you're talking a contractor's license with a county,
Yeah, there's
It's a
different
business
licenses
license.
for different type of works that they're doing.
okay?
But yeah, unfortunately, unless they're homesteaded at the property, they have to have a licensed contractor worker in the house. And the reason for that is because if that person falls or something happens to them, they can go after the homeowner.
Well, yeah, but that's between them and their insurance company, not the county.
Well, that's what we're trying to avoid. So my big thing is I don't want to put the homeowner at risk. This is, people who are licensed, insured, those are the ones that we're really looking for.
See, what I'm getting at, it's the homeowner should be empowered to select who they have work on their house and how they do the work. I'm not talking major construction work. I'm talking about that patch. Most people don't know how to take spackle and repair a little door. They bring in a handyman that has a business license, fine. They're just taking care of that simple little patch. And you're saying that they have to be fully licensed. You're going to come out and check on the work just for that patch for the doorknob?
Well, and again, sir, I got to look at what type of work you're doing because, again, I've had people say, well, I'm just doing patchwork, and next thing you know, that they're actually tearing down walls and moving them. I mean, it all depends on what the work is. Through the licensing board, handymen really don't exist in Pinellas County, all right? It depends on what type of work they're doing. And again, there was an issue last month with somebody painting the house. Well, it's a friend of mine that's painting the home. Is he homesteaded there? Then is he being paid? Well, I'm not paying him directly, but I'm going to take him out of my boat. It's compensation. You can't do it. I mean, so
you're telling me if they're homesteaded, we're free and clear here?
yeah, if it's your home, you're
Yeah.
homesteaded, you can do the work. But you may require a permit, depending on what kind of work you're doing. But you can't have anybody on the outside come in. And again, that's the ordinance, and that falls under Chapter 489.
Okay, we'll be looking at that, thanks.
Okay.
Follow up on Mr. Sable's comments. I believe our code actually leaves 90 square feet of sheet rock. You don't need a license or a permit. Because I discussed that last year, and I guess that's where I'm a little bit confused. I think you're as confused as I am.
Is that the, yes, I am.
Yeah, because like you said, the door goes in, smashes it.
You and I could do it, no problem.
Anytime we want, we'll compare each other. But what I'm saying is, we need our codes. You do a great job. I just don't think that citizens should be, scrutinized as well as I think Mr. Zabel was implying or whatever, on little circumstances like that.
And again,
Hold on one second.
Can I
Councilmember
just
Sherrill.
suggest, this is really something for a code review to go over, and it's probably, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have PCCLB, which is the licensing board for contractors, and all of this work we're talking about, those questions are probably better geared towards them, so we might want to invite them to a meeting if they come. I've been trying to get them on the phone to get some detailed handouts, and I can't get that information. But it's our code that's the issue, not so much the enforcement side of it.
Correct, and that's where we need to sit down and look at our code, and occasionally things do overrule for whatever reason. A good example is the county requires so many feet away from your neighbor if you want to install a generator. Bel Air Beach doesn't have that same code. So there are I'm sure that there are some variances, some differences between our code and county code. And I think what I'm hearing tonight is that there may be concerns that we may have some rules that give us a little bit of leeway versus what you're following right now. But I want us to get to the bottom of this and have more discussions on it.
absolutely, and we're meeting on the 21st of September, and my supervisor, Sergeant Skipper's going to be in that meeting. If they would like, I can get somebody from the licensing board to sit in on that too, so everybody will have, a great influx of information, so
I think that that's a great idea, and it should certainly be an open conversation. So, because there are many concerned citizens right now, they're not used to someone doing such a great job of keeping an eye on their community.
And again, one thing that I do want to express is education over enforcement. That's my big thing, so people understand it. So it's not like we're picking on people, it's a protection for them.
Any other questions? No? Nope. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, have a good evening.
All right, we are on to item number 4, City Attorney Report. City Attorney Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, I've been in contact with you folks in a general sense on a few matters via email. The first would be that where we left off in our last meeting, the candidate for the interim manager position had withdrawn his candidacy. I followed up by providing you correspondence from last week where he found solutions for the disputed issue of the healthcare coverage for his spouse, and was open to continuing to serve if you'd be willing to approve the agreement on those existing terms. In addition to that option, I also provided you the beginning of some resources depending on which direction this body ultimately wants to move, but ultimately the council is at the helm of the manager selection process, and that's where my involvement stands at this state. Another matter that we workshopped as recently as August 15th was the FWC, or as it's being called, FWC, Boating Restricted Areas, Gulf of Mexico Safety Zone, however you wish, whatever moniker you wish to give it. I've been drafting that ordinance. I was on the phone with a representative from FWC as recently as today, just trying to get a general sense of their impression of their code and how it has been, how the code is administered. And I expect to have a product for you by the end of this week, if not at the very beginning of next week. I would recommend ultimately that we should likely have a workshop at some point this month so that we can have an ordinance that is in first reading form next month so we can show our good faith effort and good faith attempts to resolve this issue. It is my goal, though I'm not in the driver's seat, it is my goal to give you a product that we can put this matter to bed in 2022, for lack of a better term, if a resolution can be found by a majority of the body. But my attempts are to draft something that aligns with your general direction and the code as it is administered. Other than that, I continue to be in contact with the manager on a daily basis. We joke with one another if a day should go by that we don't talk, that something must be wrong. But we are in regular contact. The one other matter that I do want to make sure you know I have not lost sight of is providing you an estimate relative to the code rewrite, including the sign code revision. I hope to have that next week. I've just been putting attention on a few other things, but that has not fallen off. Otherwise, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Council? No questions? Go ahead. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you have a subtotal from the legal side, what we've expended on the city manager search and contracting negotiations.
I have given my new tenure to the city and the need, and that this has thus far been a relatively straightforward process. I have thus far put all of my time for that under the retainer. Depending on how this goes and what my role in that process is, I reserve the right to request that that be made a special matter through the interim manager, as I've done for the voting restricted area ordinances. Is that ordinance once was on a retainer, second was on a retainer. Okay, at this point we're having multiple workshops. It's a special project. But the process of any of my time spent going towards the manager has been fully within the retainer, and I think you'll find, you'll see that the billing on the retainer far exceeds the retainer in terms of the time spent there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Banker?
You say you are probably daily contact with our interim city manager.
Yes, sir.
Have you found any errors in the last 4 months that he's been with the city manager that he's hasn't been able to address properly or whatever? Because we have a guy that wants the job now that clearly told us if we don't abide by what his demands were, he wasn't going to take it. And we have a guy sitting right next to you who I think is fully capable of doing the job. But if I'm being misled by you saying that you're talking to him every day, which you didn't say anything negative, what hurdles hasn't he been able to tackle, in your opinion, if any?
Ultimately, I'm going to leave your hiring process in your capable hands. I've found Mr. Riefler, I understand, and I'm answering the question, but I want to make very clear what my role is and is not, because I've, in past situations, been accused of putting my thumb on the scale of the process, and that's not my role. You've asked me a targeted question, and I'll answer it. I've dealt with Mr. Riefler on a daily basis. I will tell you that he is, 1, a professional, 2, kind and respectful, 3, prepared when we speak. He's also a human, and that means he does make errors. He's capable of errors. I'm not going to say he's infallible. I'm not aware of any complete halo that surrounds him in all he does, so I will not represent to you that a circumspect review of his performance will not reveal some way that something could have been done better. I'm also not an administrator. From a legal standpoint, he responds to feedback. He calls me with concerns in advance, generally speaking, and he seeks my counsel and is responsive. And where we have a disagreement, and I'm not suggesting conflict, just, hey, here's how I'm seeing it, well, I'm seeing it this way, we're able to resolve it. He's a professional that I work with, and I have enjoyed that process. Ultimately, whether or not he's the best fit for the goals and vision that you wish to achieve as a council and the direction you wish to move, that's a policymaker's decision, and I leave that to you.
Sounds all good, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just a quick question. So where do we go with respect of discussing what our options are with the candidate for the city manager position? Is that something that goes to unfinished business that we'll discuss?
That's ultimately your decision. It is business that remains unfinished. How you wish to structure your meeting or when you wish to discuss it, I defer to the body.
We'll probably leave that to a work session and pick back up. I sort of have an idea that there wasn't as much interest as originally thought in this candidate. That's my gut. I have nothing to back that up, but we'll talk about it at a later date and see what happens.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Next, we are on to the city manager report. Interim City Manager Riefler.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. First up, I have the 12th and 13th Street Bay Drive BMP 7 and 8 stormwater project. Our projected start date for that is now September 26th. What we're currently waiting on is for utility conflicts to be resolved. Duke Energy needs to come in and brace some poles and actually remove one pole to put back at a later date after the project's completed. The Clearwater Gas Company needs to dig out a utility line, just to exploratory dig, just to make sure that we're not going to come into conflict with it. Some of this stuff is just things that you don't know until you get down in the ground. Pinellas County has approached us, and I want to make you aware that they're looking to do a joint project agreement with us so that they can add some fire hydrants and replace some older style pipe, water pipe, while we're in underneath the road. So they were going to put together, it's going to be a complete reimbursement, but you'd have to approve it to do the work and then pay for it up front and then have it reimbursed by the county. So once that's together, I will present it to you. The Gulf Boulevard undergrounding project, we discussed that in the work session, well, the last one we did, and did the presentation, and I have those two items for the utility consultants and the Duke Energy agreements on the agenda. Seawall, 7th Street, 16th Street seawall and 7th Street boat ramp project. That we are still waiting for the water navigation permit to come through. I did speak with one of the supervisors for the permitting department and did get the permit to be accelerated and assigned. So she told me that they are understaffed and in the process of training new staff. So she can't guarantee it's going to be the fastest turnaround, but it has been assigned. So it is so-called expedited. So I'm hoping that comes within a couple of weeks. The contractor is prepared to start the seawalls on the project. So hopefully we move forward this month. The 7th and 18th Street Stormwater Improvement Project, which will be the next project on our list. I've put in a request for a proposal from Dual Associates for the design work, so I'd like to see what number comes back from them. And then I've discussed with them this time around that we'd like to not only look at the original design, but to really investigate different options of what's going to give us the best cost benefit for the project. So instead of just doing what was in the original design, kind of figuring out what we're going to get the most bang for our buck is. Our code enforcement analysis project, that was scheduled for the 6th, that got bumped back to the 21st. And in that meeting, right now the staff is going to be Councilmember Roberts, myself, Laura Mataloni, who's the executive assistant, and our code enforcement officer, Steve Klapka. I heard tonight that I believe he's bringing in a supervisor who wants to kind of get an idea for how things would work, and then at the same time we'll try to pull in someone from the Pinellas County Licensing Board to add to that meeting. So the all project, that again is, we have money in the budget for the next budget year. I plan on putting a bid out for it in November just to see what the number comes back and make a decision on that. And that's all I have.
Questions from the council?
We all received an email from a resident on the pond in the back here. Am I under the impression that that's county property, the pond area?
It is a county property that we have an agreement to maintain. The reason for the agreement is if the county was to maintain it at the rate that they maintain the rest of the retention bonds in the county, it wouldn't be up to our standards. So we've kind of taken it on ourselves.
Can we get like a schedule, like every 2-3 weeks to go out there and just clean that up for the resident?
We're going to adjust the schedule to get out there more often and take care of that.
Thank you.
Other council members? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Weaver. All right, number 6, City Clerk report. Patty Gentry.
Thank you. Mine is just updates, nothing new. We had that Board of Adjustment hearing for the variance for the pool height, and that variance was approved. And then the city manager search process, that's still, in a pending phase. So that's kind of at a standstill. We have a contract with the supervisor of elections to hold their primaries here, so we're a polling place for them. So we had that, and that's completed. And we had a code enforcement special master hearing for the tower structure, and the special master issued the order and the fine.
And would you mind telling us what that order was?
Mayor, I'd rather, if you don't mind, I'll step in on the clerk that is not involved in the quasi-judicial process directly. Both parties presented evidence, and ultimately the special master concluded, or the special magistrate, code enforcement magistrate concluded that the property owner required a permit to have a structure of that type at the property. There was no evidence of a permit in the file, and the respondent affirmed that he had not applied for a permit, and so the order was directing him to apply for a permit within the next, I believe it was 14 days. It's my understanding he has already secured some of that paperwork and made at least an initial submission. I don't know where that is in the review process, but that was the order was that it would require a permit application.
Thank you very much.
Reviewed as any other permit would in the city.
I just wanted the public to hear it also.
Just as a note to date, the permit application is incomplete.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the city clerk? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Gentry. All right, now we are on to the very painful consent agenda. I'm going to read this, so everyone bear with me, okay? This is covering items 7 through 16 for the approval of the June 20th special council meeting minutes, the June 20th budget workshop minutes, the July the 5th city council meeting minutes, the July 12th special council meeting minutes, the July 18th budget workshop minutes, the July 18th special council meeting minutes, the August 1st city council meeting minutes, the August 15th council work session minutes, the August 22nd council work session minutes, and finally, the August 22nd special council meeting minutes. All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, before we go to vote, just refresh my memory. You know we moved consent agenda number 7 to the regular agenda?
17.
17.
Okay.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda, okay. Agenda passes. Thank you, Patty, for getting us almost caught up. I know it's a lot of hard work. We've been very busy, and I greatly appreciate it. All right, now to the regular agenda, starting with item 17. Which is to authorize the interim city manager to execute the contract for code enforcement services.
Mayor, if we could actually move that behind the budget items have to be the first order of business.
Budget item, okay, so we need to amend.
No, you just moved it to that general place of business, so you can move it to the very last thing or
That's
take it
fine.
up as first, but as a matter of.
Thank you for clearing that up for me. So let's move on to item 18. Consideration of adopting the proposed ad valorem millage rate for fiscal year 2022-2023. This item was placed on the agenda by interim city manager Riefler and is the first public hearing on setting the proposed final millage rate for fiscal year 2022-2023. First off, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Leslie Nataro, and do I have a second?
Second.
Jody Shirley. Leslie, you have the floor.
Kyle,
back on this.
Thank you. So chapter 200 of the Florida State statute, the determination of millage, we have to set a statutory timetable and procedure for the calculation and notification of the public process to set the final ad valorem tax millage and adopt the budget. So this year, the preliminary gross taxable value came back for Bel Air Beach, which was $730,194,961, which is an increase in property value of 14.07% from the total from the year prior. The final millage rate at the current millage rate, which is 2.0394, with the new property values, which produce approximately $1,429,590 net ad valorem tax. That is tax calculated with the early payment discount. So that represents an increase of ad valorem income revenue at $177,775 over last year's budget. And it's also a requirement to calculate the rollback millage rate, and that would be the millage rate that would generate the same ad valorem tax revenue levied the prior year. The rollback rate would be 1.7916. The proposed millage rate of 2.0394 is 13.83% higher than the rollback rate. The staff,
Rollback rate of?
the rollback rate of 1.7916. The staff respectfully requests the City Council to set the proposed millage rate at 2.0394 for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022. So it must be first adopted, the millage and budget must be adopted by separate votes. So this first vote would be for the adopted millage rate.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Reefer. Council?
If we split the baby from the rollback to the proposed rate or the current rate to 1.9155, how much of an impact would that do on our budget while we're giving back some of the money to the citizens?
Well, that would essentially cut the increase in half.
So we're talking about 86,000, 85,000.
Yeah.
Floyd Roberts, did you have a comment?
Yeah. I know we discussed this at the workshop in depth. My take on it generally, interestingly enough, I did get some emails from citizens about how their tax proposal was impacted. I almost started laughing when I saw mine because my overall tax bill from the county actually went down, which was interesting because as we all know, there are several line items that make up our overall tax bill. Bel Air Beach, as a city standpoint, is really not a big percentage, but it does impact us. So I think overall that our part of the overall tax bill is fairly small, and the fact that it's spread over all the citizens of our city, when you add up those little small uplifts, if we don't cut it back, it does provide significant money to the city for us to be able to get projects done that have been requested by most of our citizens. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council before we go to the citizens? Would any citizens like to speak on this topic? Yes, sir.
Ron Saganic, 2219 Donato. I appreciate y'all taking a look at this, appreciate the hard work city staff has done. I think retaining the millage rate where it is fine. I did a little bit of research. City of Bel Air is at 6.5, Bel Air Bluffs at 5.35, And those are just a couple in comparison. Clearwater, Largo, they've got a lot more infrastructure. But I think just, for the infrastructure needs our city has, as Mr. Roberts pointed out, we need to do a lot of work. I think it's a good move, and I agree. I looked at my bill, and my bill overall proposed is going to go down by a little bit. But anyhow, I think it's good for the city and state, the 203 Lane Ford. Thank you.
Thank you. Other citizens? No? All right, let's go back to the council, and then I will give Ms. Terry the last word. Council? Yes, Vice Mayor Gunn.
Any thought of what's happening to the expenditures of the city? I mean, they're not going down at all. Only 12% of your tax bill goes back to Bel Air Beach. Right? So, I mean, just the 13th Street stormwater increased $200,000 that project. And we're talking about rolling back. It doesn't make sense. The economic climate is just too unpredictable at this point to be rolling back taxes. And yeah, it would be nice to do that, but it would be even harder to explain next year when you have to increase the ad valorem taxes. So I propose that we just leave it where it is, along with the recommendation of the city staff, and use what we can now to get ahead in the infrastructure.
Mr. Gunn, anyone else?
That said, Mr. Gunn, we are going to probably be facing the Pinellas County fire. It's at 3/8 of a mil. It's going to be increased. So I just think in this day and age with all this inflation, our increase from 177,000 to 85,000, 86,000 would be substantial. And it would give the citizens the right to spend their money more wisely than we could.
Thank you, Mr. Banker. I have seen some hype online. I occasionally do actually get online and look around, and I think the most of it, the biggest complaints are new homeowners. They buy a house, and it's the old appraised value or assessed value, and then the next year, whenever they're reassessed at the price they actually bought their home at, that's whenever they take the big hit, and it is shocking. It looks like the city is robbing from them, but the truth is that the cost of these homes just continue to go up, and for the people that have been here for a while and haven't bought a new home, these have been very minor increases overall. So I am also for maintaining the same millage rate that we've had for, 12 years now, something like that. So it's been quite a long time where we have not raised the millage rate. So that's my thoughts. Anyone else?
Yes. Brought up a good point about the inflation, and I am too, is maintaining the millage rate. But we've seen so far in the short term of our council that providers to us for services have all dramatically increased their prices. So basically, in this rate of 10%, inflation rates, we're keeping our price the same and still attempting to provide the same services that you need.
Any other council members before I turn it over to? Okay, Vice Mayor Gunn.
Just as a point of interest, I mean, how many agenda items are we talking about tonight where we're talking about increases in the expenditure? We're talking about the code enforcement, we're talking about video, and we're talking about some of the other issues here. So, I mean, our costs are going up and they're not going down. And I think it's only fair that the residents share in some of those expenditures, and or maybe the city needs to start considering more usage of special assessments because the city can't cover all of this stuff. So when you have an issue in your neighborhood or on your street or whatever, maybe we should start considering, hey, the city can kick in this amount, but maybe we need to go to special assessments for problems, addressing New York problems.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Leslie Natero.
I think it makes perfect sense to use the same ad valorem rate that you said we've used for many, many years, 2.0394, given the increase in costs, projects, things like that. It gives us a little buffer rather than going back to the rollback rate. So,
Thank you very much. With that being said, I think it's time to take a vote. Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
No.
Councilmember Notaro,
yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. So it's 6-1, and the motion carries. So that is the first public hearing, and we'll have to do this one more time before it becomes official. All right, now we are on to the budget portion. This is item 19, consideration of approving the City of Bel Air Beach budget, making appropriations for certain expenditures, expenses, capital improvements, and certain indebtedness for the year beginning October 1st, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023. This item was placed on the agenda by Interim City Manager Riefler, and is the first public hearing on the 2022-2023 budget. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Vice Mayor Gunn, do I have a second?
Second.
Mike Zabel. Vice Mayor, you have the floor.
I'll defer to the interim city manager.
Okay, so retired City Manager Lynn Reeves has prepared this budget for the council. We've gone over it in multiple, two budget workshops, June 20th and July 18th. And we've made some adjustments during that time. Some of them were updated expenses, increases, decreases based on estimates that we got the final numbers for. And then others were under the city council's direction. Some of those budget changes that were made in that time period were the state revenue sharing was increased based on the state's estimates. City manager budget was increased up to $191,780 based on the proposed city manager contract. Finance department was decreased. That was primarily due to the accounting software that we decided was not necessary. The sanitation has gone up, that will be covered later in the agenda. Library was decreased to half based on the needs of our population. And the non-department, other professional services was decreased from 10,000 down to 2,000. And that was just based on the estimated needs for that type of service. As far as capital, the Bayside Park improvements is decreased to a budget of $15,000, and that is just to cover the replacement for the playground. So the attached budget is, this is the first vote on the budget, but it will be finalized as part of a budget resolution submitted to council for approval at the second final public hearing, which will be on September 19th at 5:05 p.m. This is the staff's is humbly requesting that the council approves this budget as worked through by the city council, and the attached budget is prepared and is here for your review. So this is the first reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. Riefler. Council. Let's go to the citizens. Would any citizens like to speak on the budget? back to the council again, with the Vice Mayor Gunn having the last word.
I would just request that perhaps a quick statement from the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee, because I know they reviewed the budget and they've been intimately involved in the budget build. And I'd just like to know if he's on board and if he has any questions or additions to this.
I will allow that. Please come up to the podium and speak, sir.
Thank you. So we did review the budget in advance of the first draft. We haven't sat back with City Manager Riefler to review this, but sitting through the budget sessions, personally, I believe it's fair and it's done appropriately and is in line with what our original discussions were. I like the way things have moved around.
Thank you very much. Last chance for the council, and then back to Glenn Belly. Vice Mayor Gunn?
Call the question.
Okay. Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Zabel?
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley? Aye. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Notero? Aye. Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gunn?
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis?
Aye. So it passes unanimously, and that's the first hearing.
Wait, at the end of this thing, it says the mayor is supposed to announce something, and there was a similar one on the millage rate.
Let's just go right back to that. Because I can read them both at the same time.
First one is on page 55, 199, if you're working digitally. All bold text.
At the bottom of the memo.
All right, well, we'll first take care of the proposed millage rate. The proposed millage rate of 2.0394 mils, which is higher than the rollback rate by 13.83%, is to fund the expenses of the general fund for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2022 and ending September 30th, 2023. The final approved millage rate for the city of Bel Air Beach will be presented at a second and final public hearing that will be held on Monday, September the 19th at 5:05 p.m. As far as the budget is concerned, the final approved budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 for the city of Bel Air Beach will be presented at the second and final public hearing that will be held at the Community Center on Monday, September 19th, 2022 at 5:05 p.m.
Yes.
Randy, you were supposed to catch me on that.
I knew Notero would
Thanks to both of you, I appreciate it.
All right, so now we are on to item number 20, which is consideration of appointment of an alternate member to the Citizens Advisory Committee. The candidate's name is Tim Hollick. Before we go forward, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Jody Shirley, do I have a second?
Second.
Mike Zabel. Jody Shirley, you have the floor.
I'm going to defer to, I guess, Mr. Sadanik, if there's some explanation, we just have an open position to fill, and we have an applicant. Is Mr. Hollick here?
Is Mr. Hollick here? Ron Sakanik sits in the advisory chair. Yeah, we've got an open advisory position, and I don't know Mr. Hollick, but I looked at his application, and he's got a great background. I think working on the future budgets and the workshop item that developed that we need to address from a financial perspective, his finance background would be a great help as we get into those discussions. So look forward to his his appointment.
Thank you very much. I've been told that Mr. Hollick is not here tonight, but just for formality, is Mr. Hollick here tonight? And so would he like to address the council? And I say that because we're different now, and he could always be Zooming out there somewhere.
The seat came open.
That's a good question. Which seat did come open? It was a, it was a,
It was just an alternate.
an alternate.
Yes.
Open alternate since the beginning of the year.
Because we appointed two recently, and I was just wondering which one.
We had added it down, so I think we did 2 alternates or 3 alternates altogether, so there was an open alternate since the beginning of the year.
Thank you. Council? No? Any citizens would like to speak on behalf of Mr. Hollick or their opinion of him? Okay, well, let's go back to the council. We'll give Jody Shirley the last word.
Nothing further.
All right, let's take it to a vote. Since there's only one candidate, let's do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Seeing that none are opposed, congratulations go out to Mr. Hollick. And if you see him, thank him for serving in our beautiful city. All right, up to item 21, moving right along. This is to authorize the interim city manager to execute an agreement addendum with Waste Management, Inc. of Florida for residential, single-family, and multifamily residential complexes, solid waste collection services. This item was placed on the agenda by interim city manager Riefler, and he has a note here that this is to execute addendum number 4, increasing the agreement amount from $304,380.58 to $330,985.90 annually. Before we begin, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Jody Shirley, do I have a second?
Second.
Mike Zabel. Ms. Shirley, you have the floor.
I think this complies with our contract and the opportunity for them to increase rates, which over the scheme of things is not a very large increase, and they do a great job. They're out there picking up trash on Labor Day, so if there's anything more you want to add, feel free.
Just want to add that, yeah, the addendum number 4 is included, and there's also a letter from Bill Grisham, who is the Public Sector Solutions Manager for our area, and he addressed the increase and the justification behind it.
Council?
Yeah, if I could, just want to go back to the millage discussion. I just want to point out, as you can see here, just in this one instance, that prices, I mean, just in this case alone, went up $26,000. So again, keep the millage rate.
Mr. Zabel, is this somehow leading into the contract with Waste Services?
Yeah, I just want to point out that this was a very significant increase, and I would be voting to approve this. Just wanted to point it out, this is one of the things that millage rate pays for.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry to interrupt.
No, all right. Well,
all right, anyone else?
I don't believe the millage rate's going to pay for that. I believe that will get reduced back to the servers when it comes out to, or the citizen when it comes out to the water trash plant.
I believe that Mr. Zabel was just showing an example that everything is going up.
Yeah, but why is it going up 9%? Did they give you a reason?
So the one thing to pay attention to is per section 9 of the agreement, there was a cap on the amount of increase for the CPI, and that was a maximum of 4%. If you read the letter from Bill Grisham, they cite the increase in fuel, staff management, and other prices of unprecedented increases in the CPI, and that they're respectfully requesting that the cap this year be revised to allow the full increase of CPI. And then the other increase that comes into that balance is in the contracts, section 9, which is when the county increases their base rate charges for disposal, then that directly influences their costs.
They are a contractor with Bel Air Beach, correct?
Correct.
How are they allowed to work on the holidays, since all our other contractors aren't allowed to perform work?
I believe in their contract, they're allowed to work on the
I
holidays.
mean, our code of ordinances says contractors are not permitted to work on holidays, although Mondays a big trash pickup here. Years ago, the Fed established Mondays as the holiday. So I'm just curious why we allow that to occur. Nothing on you, okay? And meanwhile, we can't have a resident have a contractor come in and work on their house on the holiday.
I believe this is utility service and not a contractor. It's not a hired licensed contractor, it's a utility provider.
Well, they're a licensed contractor, Waste Management. I've dealt with them for 30 years.
They are definitely a licensed contractor, but they are also a public service to the city of Bel Air Beach. And
I'd like to see them guys have a day off on their holidays rather than servicing us. I mean, might even reduce the 9% cost.
Actually, I would beg to differ on that one. You've seen strikes across the world when they stopped refuge collection. It's led to pestilence, disease, smells, and I know that none of our citizens would ever stand for that. And as far as days off, yes, they are union representative, and yes, they do have comp days off. So they are getting those days off, and that's one of the things we have. Excuse me, I have the floor.
By point of order, you're correct.
not a back and forth. Please finish your
Yes, and I do understand they open into employment with their company, and they do negotiate the days that they have off and the time that they have off. They do a great job. It is not for the faint of heart to do that job, and I for one applaud them, but I definitely want to make sure that our streets are clean from refuse.
Mr. Banker, I'm 100% for our streets are clean. They're not union represented. I've talked to them many times. I told them to go union so they would get the days off. But I think they should have a day off like most of the other people here.
Thank you. Lloyd Roberts, did I see your hand?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to the citizens. Would any citizens like to speak on this topic? Nope. All right, let's go back to the council, with Jody Shirley having the last word.
Nothing further, I think we should take a vote.
Thank you very much. Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro,
Yes,
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. So the addendum agreement, or agreement addendum rather, passes, and we will move forward with that. Mr. Reaper, you are authorized to proceed. All right. Getting close, people. Item number 22, approval of piggyback agreement for consulting services related to utility undergrounding and authorization to execute a purchase order with Utility Consultants of Florida. This was also placed on the agenda by Interim City Manager Riefler. He also has a statement here that it's to underground utilities on the east side of Gulf Boulevard, Phase 1 for $847,424.50, and Phase 2 for $1,136,081.20. Before we move on to this one, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mike Zabel, do I have a second?
Second.
Glenn Gunn. Mike Zabel, you have the floor.
Yes, I defer to our interim city manager.
Thank you. So this is to approve a piggyback agreement that was drafted by Mr. Moore's firm, and that is going to piggyback the contract pricing that's currently in effect at Indian Rocks Beach. That in turn is what our phase 1 and phase 2 amounts are based off of, and I'm requesting council approves the purchase orders to move forward for phase 1 and phase 2 for the installation of the conduit by utility undergrounding. So this was discussed in the presentation of the undergrounding penny for Cornelis money, and this is the first step in consolidating the phases to approve these two agreements and to start installing the conduit. And speaking with the contractor, we believe that this phase 1 and phase 2 can reasonably get done within 5 months, even though we plan for 7.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Mr. Riegler. Council?
Yes.
Council Mayor.
Go ahead.
Just to verify that those prices reflect the consolidated
They do.
savings of 20.
I believe we actually came out, I have to do the math quick, but I believe if we compare it back, it was closer to 30,000.
Good job.
Mike Zabel.
Just briefly, I had some various questions coming in from you about the timeline. Now, can you give us like a broad scope? Look, phase 1 includes this. Here's start date, here's end date. Phase 2 broadly includes this, start date, end date. And again, approximate ballparks.
Ballpark. So for this part of the project, the utility consultants, we'd be starting it, approving it this month to start in October. 5 months time frame is the goal. And as soon as they complete phase 1 of that, which could be 2 to 3 months, which would be the south of Causeway Boulevard, shortly after that, Duke, which is the next agenda item, can come in and start their work after inspection. So they're going to work directly behind utility consultants.
So broadly, till what's the date, say phase 1, to everything's underground, nice, ground tamped, all that good stuff.
Ballpark 2 years, trying to accomplish both, the utility consultants will be done and then do follow up with phase 1 through phase 2. Really depends on availability of crews. They might be able to get multiple crews working at one time. At the same time, any kind of emergency that pulls those crews.
No, I understand. So broadly speaking, from today, it's going to be 2 years till everything's undergrounded. That's phase 1, phase 2. Basically, Beller Beach undergrounded on call.
Yes, and the only other variable is the communication company, which is Spectrum. They have undergrounding they need to do from 12th Street North to Harrison. That either will get squeezed in somewhere in the project between Duke's phases, or it might have to wait till after, because they are not, through experience, we've seen that they do take a longer period of time, and that would be the least in priority to accomplish.
Great, thanks.
Lloyd Roberts.
Yeah, we discussed it a bunch at the workshop. I'm fine with it. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council before I go to the citizens? Citizens, anyone want to speak on this topic? No? All right, back to the council. Mike Zabel, you have the last word.
Like you said, it's the vote.
Gladly. Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Zabel?
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley? Aye. Councilmember Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Notaro? Aye. Councilmember Baker?
No.
Vice Mayor Gunn?
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis?
Aye. So it passes 6-1. Thank you very much. Mr. Riegler, you are authorized to proceed with the piggyback agreement. All right, we are on to number 23, which is for authorization to execute underground conversion agreements and purchase orders with Duke Energy Florida LLC, which was also placed on the agenda by Interim City Manager Riegler. Now, before we discuss this, would anyone like to make a motion to move forward on it?
Motion.
Jody Shirley, do I have a second?
Second.
Leslie? Jody, you have the floor.
I think we pretty much covered it, but for the Kyle, if there's anything additional to add.
Real quick, these are the two conversion agreements from Duke Energy that were based off of the binding cost estimates that we had done for us. They are pretty straightforward. They were reviewed by our city attorney, and with these agreements being authorization to sign these agreements, it would also be to create purchase orders. With phase one, they would need the money up front as part of the agreement. I discussed with Miriam, who deals with the contracts for Duke, that when we got to the phase two, we could postpone the payment on phase two and keep our binding cost until next year's budget. So starting October 2023, we would execute that purchase order.
Thank you very much. Other council members? Comments? Frank Baker?
One big thing I have with underground wiring is the transmission of electrical energy, which is reduced when it comes from doing underground to above ground. Most underground, will carry about 11 kV. With all these new electric cars coming out and everything like that, has Duke addressed possible increases or the wiring capacity that's going to be able to transmit the electricity? Because these are going down Gulf Boulevard that will feed into the neighborhood. And while there's other things that I think we should have been spending this money on, because it's going to, I think the total cost is over $5 million. And again, once government gets money, they'll find a way to spend it. I think we could have used it to cure our stormwater problems out here rather than paying Duke Energy to hide wires. But my big concern is with this added electrical surge on the grid. Has Duke Energy ever been addressed in saying, is this going to, if everyone has an electric car in the next 5-10 years, are the underground wires going to be capable of carrying that charge or that load?
I know that they have a team of engineers that have worked on the project and designed it, but I can follow up with that.
Thank you.
Can I add too, I know that when we've done some undergrounding in the city, there was a huge requirement to upgrade service. The service was upgraded by Duke at the time the lines were buried in along 22nd.
You're talking residential, I'm talking transmission for going into residential. There's
Right,
there's a big difference once it goes into the house.
Well, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm just saying that I don't think Duke Energy is going to take the lines that are overhead as they sit and bury them. There's going to be new lines laid.
No, I don't
Point of order, wait, let's not have a back and forth on this. Let's take it one at a time. I'm going to step in just for a second and add that I did see a presentation at one of the Big C meetings from Duke, and yes, they are increasing their transmission line capacity. Are they prepared to handle 25 electric cars on your street? Probably not. I don't know if that will ever happen. But they are, as they do these projects, they are increasing the line capacity size.
And my point is, if it's above ground, that will be able to handle the 25 cars per street. And no way would they ever take the lines up and put them underground. They're not meant for that. But it's usually 11 kV max on underground lines to service the community.
Thank you for that opinion. And let's go right quick to the citizens. Would anyone like to speak on this topic? No? No electricians? Okay. Let's come right back to the council with Jody Shirley having the last word.
I think this has been a priority for the city for quite some time, and I'm happy that we are aggressively moving forward with this project. Thank you for the support.
Thank you. All right, so Patty, we're going to do another roll call vote on this one. And again, this is to authorize the underground conversion agreements with Duke. Please take the roll.
Councilmember Baker?
No.
Councilmember Notaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. So it passes 6-1. Mr. Reaper, you are authorized to proceed with executing the underground conversion agreements and purchase orders with Duke Energy. Okay, now we are back to item 17, which is to authorize the interim city manager to execute the contract for code enforcement services with the Pinellas County Sheriff for fiscal year 22 and 23. This item was placed on the agenda by interim city manager Reed Flynn. Do I have a motion to move forward on this one?
So moved.
Mike Zabel, do I have a second? Second. Frank Banker. Mike Zabel, you have the floor.
Yeah, just before I ask for the interim city manager, just wanted to point out that this contract is an amount to amount. It does not guarantee use of the full amount, but it's under our control as to how much, where, when, and the enforcement is under our control. Okay, to city manager report if possible. Thank you.
Okay, as mentioned in the work session, we're increasing the hourly rate is going up to $51.80 per hour. We discussed starting October 1, the code enforcement officer going to 15 hours per week as opposed to the 20 hours per week we're doing now. That will also be followed up and discussed in our code enforcement analysis to find out where we end up with what the best solution is for code enforcement in Miller Beach.
Thank you. Other council members? Mr. Roberts?
I have nothing to add.
All right, let's go to the citizens for comments. No? All right, back to the council with Mike Zabel having the final word.
Move to vote. Sorry. Just want to see if anybody else.
Thank you very much. All right, so this is to authorize the interim city manager to execute the contract for code enforcement services with the Pinellas County Sheriff for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Notaro,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
The motion passes unanimously. You are authorized to move forward with that contract. Thank you very much. All right, item 24, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? Council? No? All right, well, let's move right on into, yes, sir, Mr. Gunn. Do you have
Well, I guess a question on, with respect to the city manager hiring and responding to Mr. Griffin's latest communication with the council. I guess just to be professional and responsive to that request, do we have a timeline in mind for responding to that?
I didn't pick anything out. I haven't said anything yet. I was actually hoping for a nudge from the council, basically contacting the city manager, city attorney, and giving me some direction on whether we need to have a special council meeting or not.
I guess I was just wondering if City Attorney Moore picked up any vibes in his discussions with Mr. Griffin as to timeliness or a response.
When I spoke with him last week, I informed him that this body would be meeting tonight, that I had not yet received indication that a special meeting would be scheduled on the manager selection process, and that ultimately it would be at the will of the body whether or not they make a decision tonight, and that I could not guarantee one would be forthcoming or not, or what that decision would be. I was very explicit with him to manage expectations, to state that the offer, as from the city's perspective, was not open, but if they chose to extend it again, and if you chose to extend it again, you of course have that option. As far as process and timing, while he did not say, and I need to know in X amount of days, he did express that he was and remains eager for the opportunity, that he welcomed the opportunity to work with and for this community, and ultimately he respected whatever decision the council made, but wanted to make sure they knew he remained interested and eager pending whatever decision you make. Whether you decide that you certainly are able to make that decision as a body tonight if you so desire, at least as to that. I'm not suggesting you hire somebody tonight either way, but if you wish to offer some closure on that or have a direction you wish to move, simply provide it and I will execute as appropriate.
Thank you. I would be interested in hearing the council's general thoughts on what they would like to do, whether we move forward and offer the opportunity again, or we take a step back and continue looking in another direction.
I would be interested to know, Attorney Morris said he contacted someone at the Florida League of Cities. What is the status of that?
Thank you. So in recognizing that you were in transition and that I've facilitated similar processes in the past, I wanted to make sure you knew what your options were, regardless of what you choose. Upon learning that Mr. Griffin had withdrawn his candidacy and reflecting on what next steps might exist, I reached out to a contact with the FCCMA/FLC Senior Advisor Program. It's a program of retired managers who offer consulting services to managers and communities for free for communities that are, I believe, under 10,000 residents, of which you clearly are. I reached out to see if they were open to working with Bellar Beach. Sometimes they'll say, hey, based on history or based on availability, we're not in a position to help. They said that they were willing to and gave me, as I provided to you, the list of managers in transition. That is the list of managers who don't have positions, are affiliated with the organization, and are looking. Ultimately, it was there's no status update because I had no client direction. Given the way that as you all well know, and I'm not suggesting anything to the contrary, given the operation of the Sunshine Law, I haven't been in contact with any of you directly as to this is what needs to be done or have any sense of where this body wishes to go. I make sure you have information, and when you have an opportunity to deliberate and provide me direction, you do. So there's no status beyond the resources available if you so desire, just like, the world remains your oyster.
Thank you very much. Mr. Banker.
Well, I believe the last session Mr. Griffin was here, he argued for his wife's health insurance to be paid. And when he didn't receive that, he bolted from this room that says volumes to me because the meeting went on for about another 2 hours and we were discussing a $5 million job. In my opinion, he showed no interest in the city moving ahead when he didn't get what he wanted. One resident sent all of council, I believe, a few articles. He was terminated for, I believe, cause. I'm not sure why he was terminated. I think he should be taken off the list. I think we have minimal diamond in the rough sitting next to Mr. Moore. The man should be promoted, and that's my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts, would you like to weigh in on this?
I would. As all of you know, I was one of the four initially that was in favor of moving forward with Mr. Griffin. I wasn't exactly pleased when he came forward with the request to add an additional $16,000 approximately for his spouse. I shared with him openly there that there were options out there that I know were available to him that would allow him to get some coverage for his spouse at a much, much better rate and a very good coverage. So I wasn't real pleased with that reaction. And then, as we all know, he came back and said, well, he wasn't going to be able to move forward without that. So he was withdrawing his application. Then, through Mr. Moore, we were contacted and we were let know that he did find something else that was better and he wanted to proceed. In addition to that, as Mr. Banker referenced, we were copied on some articles from the newspaper So that coupled with the information that Mr. Moore provided to us regarding tools available to us to find potentially interested parties that were previously or currently city managers around our state. I personally would prefer that we not move forward with an offer to Mr. Griffin.
Thank you. Jody Shirley.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of moving forward. Yeah, okay. I'm not in favor of moving forward with Mr. Griffin. I am in favor of reaching out to some of the resources that are available with an effort to try to streamline this process. I think we lost some candidates because our process is so long, moving through the review of the resumes, lack of response on the city's part to those individuals who showed an interest in the position. I think and that's where we could be more successful if we brought in an outside source to spearhead the project rather than us waiting a month in between every meeting and not being able to move quickly enough with parties that are interested in the position.
I don't think it was a month between every meeting.
No, I
We
don't.
had special meetings, but even then, our hands are tied on trying to expedite anything. And there is a very good possibility that, well, I know for a fact we lost a very good candidate because of timeliness. And all of a sudden he had another offer. So I would agree with you on that.
And I'm just going to say, in Patty's defense, she is not a human resource officer. So it's really tough to saddle her with all the responsibilities when we could potentially use one of these senior advisors or a firm.
Thank you. Mike Sayworth.
Yeah, I'm agreed in not moving forward, but just want to remind everybody that, how come we don't have a city manager, things are going on. It's a due diligence. Due diligence is precisely that. It takes time. You got good days, you got bad days. It's continual push, pull on every way. Just want to point that out. And yeah, we're under time, certain mechanisms that we cannot, unlike a private firm, immediately hire somebody going, right after the interview, boom. 2 days later they're working. It does take time. But having said that, yes, I would recommend again not going forward with that hiring and then going back to a working session to look at our options. And I'm saying, back to all the options from retaining, interim city manager up to looking at the new people. That's all.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Gunn.
After the last meeting with Mr. Griffin, kind of fell out of my favor, and I'm not in favor of supporting any further discussion with Mr. Griffin. I think that train has left the station. But I think what's important right now is we move forward because we're at a decision point on how to proceed with this thing. What I see is, just gleaning from the discussions here, we've got some alternatives here. We had suggestions about a headhunter service. We certainly can repeat the city's job search and take this project on ourselves once more. We can look to alternative sources. I mean, the city attorney talks about the Florida League of Cities. One we forget is the ICMA. They do a lot of this kind of work. They have people standing by also to support city manager gaps and that sort of thing. And what I will also throw out there is a consideration of extending the interim city manager duties, kind of in the form of like a probationary period extended out 6 months, a year. Things seem to be proceeding on a well-balanced approach to running the city. while we take the time to sit back and decide how we're going to do this thing. The old expression comes to mind, make haste slowly. I mean, the job's getting done. Let's take a breath, figure out where we are and how best to proceed. So that's all.
I would agree with you also on that. If you look at just all of the minutes that we went through, it's been, it's not been a joyride. We've been very, very busy, and we've been trying to somehow work in hiring a city manager at the same time. I think maybe taking a break and just letting things be idle, at least through this budget and during the budget period. And in the next work session, we discuss a little bit more what our game plan should be. And we take our time and we come up with a solution that works for everyone on the council. And then we'll move forward on it. I like the fact that we do have other resources that we were not aware of before we started this process, and I greatly appreciate that. So I am not in favor of bringing Mr. Griffin in.
I've heard the body's direction, and I will communicate the same to Mr. Griffin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other unfinished business? No? All right, so let's move to city council comments. I'm going to mix it up a little bit this time, and I'm going to start right in the middle with Lloyd Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, it was interesting. I heard some talk about, moving as quickly as we can because we felt like we lost opportunities with potentially good candidates. And then at the end, we were talking about slowing down. So I think I stripped some gears on that move there just a little bit. But obviously, I don't think there's any perfect answer there. But I think it is great that Mr. Moore gave us some opportunities there and actually some names that were given to him by the Florida League of Cities. I think it would be in the best interest, and obviously you had mentioned we could have another work meeting. We could discuss that further, and if we could have that sooner, I think it might be better so that we can get the wheels turning on this. Personally, I think that would be a good idea, and as we've said, multiple of those people have said that we have a good interim city manager who's doing a great job. Somebody told me that, the city hasn't burned down, so that's a good thing. But I think he's doing a great job, and we should move forward to check and to see what other people are available, because I'm sure there were people available now that probably weren't available when we were openly advertising previously. So I think we have some options available to us, and I think we should pursue all of them and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jody Shirley.
Yeah, I just would like to thank Kyle for everything he's done during this transition. Thank you for, you've been a great support, and especially thank you for taking care of the intercoastal buoys for us and getting those underway and pulling together this undergrounding project. You've done a great job. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Mike Sable.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got to relay some bad news, but the community has lost one of their own this past weekend, Mr. Bill Milden. Bill was an Eagle Scout, one of the first in the city to achieve that rank, and he's also a Navy veteran. Ran a company that provided, at least on the confidential side, special cables to the U.S. Navy and their submarines. To the Meldens, our thoughts and prayers are with you. He will be missed. So just a reminder, look after your neighbors. We're a small community. Not everybody has, family. Look in, on your neighbors. Sometimes they need help of some sort or another. And I also want to extend an apology. I got an email this morning from Miss Mall, and I apologize. You're doing landscaping on behalf of the county. You shouldn't be doing that. But thanks for having me out to your house early this morning. Then again, I apologize for you having to, do that stuff. That should be the county's work, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zabel. Up next is Frank Mayer.
Earlier, a citizen got up about paving of the easements. I've been talking to a few people, 9th first. I haven't found one person in favor of that. I think it's wasteful money. I think it would bring in all sorts of electric bikes and everything like that going right down the street, litter. I think that thing should be tabled indefinitely. The thought process of doing this, I know it was discussed at a work session this year to go forward. I talked to Kyle last month, and he was saying they were thinking about doing it, I guess, on the 12th and 13th Street project, since you already have Barbara Green out there and paving units. But I think that should be squashed for now. The other thing I want to say is I attended a magistrative hearing last month about a tower that the mayor was heavily involved with over the last, I guess, 2-3 months. And our city attorney and our interim city manager did an excellent job of defending our code and bringing safety to that resident. I applaud. That's it.
Mr. Matera.
No comments.
Vice Mayor Dunn.
With regards to the switching gears, I think the strategy we're really taking is to slow down just a little bit to decide how best to proceed with this. But once you make a decision on how you proceed, then time is of the essence, and that's when you go blitzkrieg on this thing. So I don't think we need to confuse that completely. The best practices I've seen at other council meetings is that it would be nice that maybe during discussions or something like that, in between, rather than just having a great family picture on the screen, it would be nice if we had the agenda on the screen so that the people in the audience can see what we're talking about and they can see some of the dollar values and stuff like that. I've just seen that. So in between, kind of just, we can have the agenda up there so they can see which line item we're on and where we are in the agenda. And also, once in a while, if possible, we can flash up one of the charts or whatever where we're talking about specific data so they can follow along with us rather than just sit out there and try to glean all this knowledge from the conversation. Just a best practice I've seen at other council meetings in some of our sister cities here. The retention pond across the street, at one time, my understanding was there was a fountain out there. It was plumbed, and that's how they kind of controlled some of the stuff that ponds go that forms and stuff out there. And it was removed at one time for cost, but maybe it's time to revisit that as it may be a cost, a recurring cost for power, but it might solve some of the issues with cleanups and that sort of thing. Along with the consolidation of phase 1, phase 2 for the undergrounding, we really need to work into the discussions of the strategy of how you plan to pay for that 1.2 million shortfall. So I just want to make sure that doesn't get kicked down the road too far. We need to start working that into our budget discussions of how we're going to plan that. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also agree with Vice Mayor Gunn on the slowing of the gears conversation or comment. Really, the gears start moving quickly whenever you say go, and that's whenever you have a brand new set of candidates at any given time. As long as once we say go and we begin the search process, that's whenever I think it's more important than it is being in a hurry to formulate a plan. I will admit that one was on me. I put something together that I thought would work. Unfortunately, it was not a realistic plan because of what I mentioned earlier about how our hands are tied because of the sunshine law. So I think that if we work together on a plan and whenever we say go, we step back and let it happen as rapidly as possible, we'll have a larger set of candidates and better chances of agreeing on someone. Also, there are several issues concerning our current code. The need for new code and methods used to enforce our municipal and county codes. I would like to address some of these issues in our next council work session. Until then, I would like to thank everyone who attended, either in person or on Zoom. I'd also like to thank the council and staff for your dedication to the city. You make my job way easier than it should be. And with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Frank Baker, do I have a second?
Second.
Judy Shirley, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.